You are looking at the only 7 items that stand between your family and a winter you cannot afford to face unprepared. Not a bunker, not a fortune, not a degree in homesteading. Just 7 things. And the cold truth is most people already have the money and the space to stock them, but they spend it on the wrong supplies that rot, freeze, or fail the moment the power cuts out. Because what you store matters far less than how you store it, and the difference is measured in months of shelf life you are losing right now without knowing it. This section is formatted for direct paste into VidRush custom script mode. Asterisk, asterisk, every winter. A storm hits, the grid fails, and families discover their emergency stash has rotted or expired. The difference is these 7 items, stored with a method that adds months. I'll show you what to buy before the first frost and exactly how to store it so your family eats well when nobody else can. I drove back to Lancaster County 6 months later, but this time I wasn't asking Reuben about fuel. The winter of 2021 was still raw in my memory. A single deep freeze had collapsed the Texas power grid, left millions without water, and emptied every grocery store within 100 miles of my home. The news said it was unprecedented. But when I described the panic to Reuben, he nodded slowly and said, "We don't worry about that." He showed me a root cellar dug into the cold earth beneath his barn. No electricity, no climate control, just a stone floor, a bucket of sand, and wooden crates holding beets, turnips, and carrots that had been there since October. 4 months. Perfect condition. The temperature was a steady 38 degrees. The humidity kept the roots crisp. I started asking questions, and he started pulling out answers that weren't in any emergency manual I'd ever read. The average adult needs more than 2,000 calories a day to stay warm when the indoor temperature drops. But canned soup alone won't cut it. Your body needs dense, shelf-stable grains that actually give you energy. Rice, oats, and dry beans. He showed me white rice vacuum-sealed in mason jars with an oxygen absorber, a trick that pushes shelf life from months to years. He showed me wheat stored in food-grade buckets with dry ice to kill any insect eggs. But here is the part that changed everything for me. The first thing he checked wasn't the food at all. It was the water. And he didn't store it in the hard plastic jugs I had piled in my garage. He used something else entirely, because in a deep freeze, a rigid container splits and you lose everything. He held up a flat, heavy-duty plastic bladder, the kind used in camping but thicker. When water freezes inside a rigid jug, the ice expands and cracks the walls. A bladder simply stretches, then contracts when it thaws. I checked the temperature in his root cellar. 38 degrees. That alone was a safety net, because below ground water never freezes. But for anyone storing water above ground, Reuben said, use a vessel that bends. The CDC says store 1 gallon per person per day for drinking, and when you multiply that by at least a week for a family of 4, you are looking at 28 gallons. Most people stack milk jugs in the garage and call it good. Those jugs leak within a month and burst the first night the garage hits 20 degrees. But water is only the first item, and the second one is where I had been wasting money for years. Rice, oats, dry beans, the foundation of any winter pantry. I used to keep mine in their original bags, rolled up and clipped. Reuben opened a mason jar filled with white rice, a tiny white packet at the bottom. Oxygen absorber, he said. Vacuum seal the lid, and that rice will outlast 3 election cycles. University extension guides confirm it. Dry grains in airtight containers with oxygen removal stay viable for years instead of months. The same trick works for beans, pasta, and rolled oats. The packet costs pennies. The peace of mind is the difference between a meal and a pile of mold. Then he walked me back to the root cellar and pushed a wooden crate into the light. Carrots, beets, turnips, each one firm and unblemished since October. No refrigeration, just a bed of damp sand. Cold storage works because root vegetables are alive. They breathe. Keep the temperature between 32 and 40 degrees, the humidity high, and they will hold for 4 months or more. Potatoes keep best in darkness with a bit of airflow, but never next to onions, because the gases they release will spoil each other. These are the rules that homesteaders knew a century ago, and that most of us unlearned the moment we bought our first refrigerator. But the 4th item stopped me cold. Reuben fetched a bucket from the barn and lifted the lid. Inside, submerged in a milky liquid, were eggs. Dozens of them. He cracked one into a bowl. The yolk stood tall and orange. "Lime water," he said. "Pickling lime from the hardware store. Mixed with water, seals the pores of the shell. The eggs stay fresh on the shelf for 8 to 12 months without a single watt of electricity." This was how families ate eggs through the entire winter before the power grid existed, and almost nobody remembers it now. And yet, even perfect storage with every technique I have described will fail if you miss the single most expensive mistake I saw in my own garage last year. Because the real enemy of a winter stockpile is not the cold, not the thaw, not the dark. It is the slow, silent drift of expiration dates that creep up while you are not looking. The Amish do not keep a separate emergency stash. Their pantry is the same one they eat from every day, and that habit is the only thing that prevents a fortune in food from rotting on a shelf. The Amish do not have a pantry that sits untouched for years. They have a working pantry. They eat from it every day, replace what they use, and nothing reaches its expiration because nothing is ever forgotten. The rotation itself is the preservation method. And when I looked at my own garage shelf, I saw $200 in freeze-dried meals I had bought 3 winters ago and never once opened. The cans were dusty. The dates were closing in. If a storm had hit that night, I would have fed my family food that tasted like cardboard and salt, while the rice and oats I actually eat sat in a cabinet 5 feet away, already half empty from nightly dinners. That is when Reuben told me something I have not stopped thinking about. The single biggest mistake people make when stockpiling for winter is buying food they do not already eat. When the power fails and the roads ice over, your body is already under stress. Your children are already anxious. The last thing anyone needs is a meal that tastes foreign. He pointed to his shelves. The same jars of oats his wife uses for breakfast. The same wheat she bakes into bread every week. Not a separate stash. Not a secret bunker. Just more of what they already love, rotated by use, replaced on the next trip to the bulk store. That brings me to the 5th item, and it is the one most homesteading guides skip because it seems too obvious. Protein that needs no refrigeration and no cooking fuel. Canned chicken, canned tuna, canned ham. Shelf stable for years. Ready to eat cold straight from the can. Peanut butter, dense with calories and fat, the exact fuel a cold body burns to stay warm. A single jar contains over 2,500 calories and needs no preparation beyond a spoon. When the temperature inside your house drops to 50 degrees, your metabolism accelerates just to maintain core heat. You will be hungrier than you expect. Canned soup alone will leave you weak. But you also need comfort, and that reveals the 6th item, with a number that surprised me. 1 roll of toilet paper per person per week, for a family of 4 lasting a month. That is a single 20-roll multi-pack. Most people do not calculate it. They guess. And when the roads are impassable and the store shelves are stripped bare, the absence of something as simple as toilet paper turns a manageable hardship into a grind of daily misery. Toothpaste, soap, laundry detergent, all of them store indefinitely in a cool, dry place, and all of them become irreplaceable luxuries the moment the supply chain snaps. Yet even with all 6 items, water, grains, roots, eggs, protein, hygiene, you can still fail. Because here is the math that humbled me in Reuben's kitchen. The average adult working in the cold needs well over 2,000 calories per day, and a can of vegetable soup might give you 300. You can eat 3 meals a day from a standard emergency kit and still be slowly starving while the snow piles against the door. Caloric density is the hidden metric nobody prints on the front of the survival bucket. And the 7th item solves it with an ingredient that outlasts every other food in your pantry: hard white wheat stored with dry ice. Reuben pulled back a tarp in the corner of the barn. 5-gallon food-grade buckets, stacked 3 high. He cracked the lid on one. The wheat inside was golden and clean. No weevils, no dust, no decay. He explained the method. 1/4 pound of dry ice in the bottom of the bucket, then pour the wheat on top. Leave the lid loose for 5 or 6 hours so the carbon dioxide displaces the oxygen and the dry ice sublimates completely. Then seal it airtight. No insect eggs survive the suffocation, and the grain will last 30 years or more. With a hand grinder, a cup of that wheat becomes flour in 60 seconds. Flour becomes bread, biscuits, pancakes. From one bucket, a family eats for weeks. And the entire setup, bucket, lid, grain, and dry ice, costs less than a single grocery run for processed food that will expire before the year is out. Here is where it connects into something larger than a winter storm. The Amish were doing this math before the phrase supply chain ever entered the news. They were not reacting to a forecast. They were building a system where the forecast does not matter. And the popular advice tells you to buy freeze-dried meals with a 25-year shelf life, tuck them in a basement corner, and pray you never need them. The Amish approach is the exact inverse. Store what you eat what you store, and let the rotation itself become your insurance policy. Spend your hard-earned money on something your family will actually consume, and when the next Texas freeze or northeast blizzard locks down your town, your kitchen still works. But I have saved one document for last. It is a single sheet of guidance from a university extension office that lays out exactly how a family on any budget can build this system in less than a month without a root cellar, without a barn, and without changing how they cook dinner tonight. Stay with me. I found it in a university extension database, a free document titled Preparing an Emergency Food Supply and Long-Term Food Storage. It had been updated for 2023, and it read like a translation of everything Reuben had shown me, but written for a suburban pantry with no barn, no root cellar, and a budget of less than $50 a month. The blueprint was simple. Start with water stored in flexible food-grade containers, never rigid jugs, and calculate 1 gallon per person per day for at least a week. Then build a grain foundation with white rice, rolled oats, and dry beans, each one sealed in a glass jar or mylar bag with an oxygen absorber. The document confirmed what Reuben demonstrated. Those grains remain viable for up to 30 years when oxygen is removed and the container stays sealed. For root vegetables, the guide offered an alternative to the underground cellar. A cool basement corner, an unheated closet, even a cheap cooler placed against an exterior wall in a garage, so long as the temperature holds between 32 and 40 degrees. Pack beets, carrots, and turnips in damp sand inside a plastic bin, and they will last 4 months. Potatoes in a separate dark box with ventilation, never touching onions. The eggs were the surprise Reuben had already taught me. Lime water, a tablespoon of pickling lime per quart of water, eggs submerged and stored in a cool spot, good for 8 to 12 months. But the document added one method I had missed. Powdered milk, dehydrated cheese, and canned butter keep for years and require 0 refrigeration until opened. You can bake bread, make hot chocolate, and cook creamy soups without a single drop of fresh milk. That turns wheat from a survival grain into a daily comfort food, and the guide included a recipe for stovetop flatbread that uses only flour, salt, and water. The final envelope of the plan was not a product at all. It was a rotation schedule printed on a single page. A list of every item in your pantry with its purchase date, best by window, and replacement trigger. The document said the same thing Reuben lived by. Eat what you store, and replace it when you do. No separate stash. No hidden cash. Just more of the meals your family already eats, tracked on paper, refreshed by habit. And before I left Lancaster County that afternoon, Reuben handed me a mason jar of honey from his own hives. He said it would never expire. Archaeologists have found edible honey in Egyptian tombs. The sugar concentration kills bacteria, and a sealed jar of honey on a cool shelf outlasts the person who bottled it. That was the final surprise. A food that needs no process, no rotation, no power, and it sweetens every hard day until spring. That jar of honey sits on my kitchen counter now, next to a mason jar of rice and a laminated rotation schedule. It is not a bunker. It is not a panic room. It is just a quiet system that works when the grid does not, built from the same principles the Amish have carried for generations. They never fought the oil companies or the supply chains or the weather. They simply built something better in their own kitchens and root cellars, and they waited. And every winter, since I met Reuben, I have asked myself the same question he never needed to ask out loud. What would my family eat if the truck stopped tomorrow? If this video helped you answer that question for yourself, hit subscribe. I put together a free guide to the exact storage methods, container types, and rotation schedule I use now, and if this content made sense to you, there is a special offer for you through the link in the first pinned comment. The Amish do not wait for permission to take care of their own. Neither should you.